I got a quote tweet on the day of an old tweet of mine where I just said, "Nobody cares about Russia, you fucking idiots." And he goes, "What's the opposite of an evergreen tweet?"
Ooh.
And I was just thinking, you're
a temperate, deciduous tree.
That's literally true.
Very good.
I came in with the tree joke.
But
I worry sometimes that I've lost my ability to riff. I was talking about this with Jen. Like, when I think of what, and I wore my Iron Maiden shirt in tribute of this. When I think of what, scared like the Tipper Gores, like the last major cultural moral panic, where, by the way, like liberals and woke people did join with like conservative Christian right and the authorities to be like, by the way, if you listen to Prince, you're going to be a misogynist.
Yeah, take down Twisted Sister.
Yeah. Like, I have to say, though, like, what did they say keep your children away from? It was The Simpsons and Beavis and Butthead. It was like NWA and death metal. And these kids, these poor kids, they get a comic book movie. It's recycled.
That's really true. And you know what? I feel like
we had great art to be scared of.
This movie does a suicide bombing.
Well, we had Unreal Tournament when I was
There's never going to be a best ever death metal band out of Denton about a Joker movie,
She believes in the American dream, which honestly sounds really nice. It sounds fun to be that. I would like to. I can't remember how young I was when I still believed in that myth, but it must have been like a really better than believing in Santa Claus, to believe that if you work hard, if you whatever, dress nice and learn how to go to job interviews, and you can get a leg up and get ahead. And that's probably why she's so sweet. Like, if you believe that there's potential for the world to be fair, it's a lot easier to just be like, oh no, it's fine. You don't get bitter and contemptuous of people. You're like, oh no, everyone just misunderstands this. All you got to do is get an education. We have to be thrifty, on a fiscal economic level. We have to, work hard, be responsible, do the whole thing, and then the world is your oyster. How cute is that?
We didn't expect this because in New York, we hate Germans because they're the worst tourists.
You don't want because they're too slow.
They're just this lumbering Teutonic they're like a piece of driftwood in a middle of a rushing river that's got caught on some rocks.
But it's annoying.
Everyone else is like, do you not see the Italians and the Puerto Ricans and just everyone else just zipping by you, and they're like, oh, I'm going to take a picture. But you understand it's because they bring Germany with them.
Yeah. Exactly, because if you were in Germany and they were doing that, you wouldn't mind.
Yeah.
You'd be like, you know what, it's actually nice out. I'm glad that I'm sauntering.
First of all, how does your economy even function? Well, we know how it does.
We'll explain.
You all appear to be on vacation 6 months out of the year in Bed-Stuy, taking pictures of Biggie Smalls murals, being 12 feet tall and in everyone's way, and moving us. I don't know how to move that slowly. But here, it works.
This Morse guy just survived a traumatizing experience. I don't know the guy. He's probably pretty far to the right of me or whatever. He's definitely weird. I don't trust child prodigies. But having that happen to you, that is horrifying. And when you go back and you read about the satanic ritual abuse panic, which I think also people sort of misread as this purely cultural phenomenon, and they don't think about the fact that it had a lot to do with the reality that women were going to work, and people all of a sudden had these anxieties about childcare, and they were imagining all of these, dangerous things. I think these things do come from a political and economic sort of, context. But this is just, sex panic and shit like that aside, this is just some evil, bloodless little Amherst college Democrat targeting, stalking, and developing a frankly very thin, weak sort of conspiracy against what is apparently the most G-rated gay man in the universe. And it worked. So what does that say about our moment? Frankly, that's a very weak link. But again, I'm really fascinated by this stuff. And again, I think it doesn't come out of nowhere. It's not all whatever. The whole SJ dub thing, it has way more to do with the fact that I think feminism is very much an unfinished project and turned into this liberal fucking chaos demon of careerism that drove everyone insane. And women realized, oh, I got all these things, but they all suck because I have no economic or financial security. And I think there was like this period of like, the naughty oddies where like sexual libertinism was the way to be like a good feminist. And then we're experiencing kind of a backlash from that. Like, again, I think that this stuff it's not just like kids gone wild. This is a response to the economic realities of a generation that falls in line with a multi-generational campaign to try and figure out some way to like grapple with sex politically and socially. Nonetheless, it is actually dangerous. It is the shit that happened with the satanic ritual abuse stuff. Like, it had long standing. I mean, we think it's like funny. Everyone believed this shit because a 4-year-old did it. And then I saw Satan and the baby winked at me. But like, it's actually horrible. They locked up people who were usually poor. They locked up a lot of immigrants, gay people, of course, definitely, obviously fell on gay people. They were like, well, these are obviously the people abusing our children. Like, there were like some like Mexican lesbians that were like in jail for years and years and years based on something that like was pulled out of a 3-year-old. No, I pulled out of a story. I don't mean physically. If they pulled something out of them, yes, maybe do an investigation.
It's like when a dog eats like the string that's on a fucking roast beef.
You just got to keep pulling. But like, this stuff does result in like major legislative changes. It does put people in jail. It does create a more atomized and frankly like bigoted society. Like, they were making real advances in gay rights, and then AIDS happened, and suddenly these people were stigmatized, and then the satanic ritual abuse thing also didn't fucking help. There were like, men were starting to get jobs in like childcare, and sort of like that became, but it was usually like gay men, the pioneeresses, if you will. And then all of a sudden, people were nervous about having fairies around their fucking kids because there was this old idea of like the pedophile gay man floating around. This shit is actually dangerous. I have a suggestion. Raise the age of consent for aspiring PMC people to 35. They can't handle it.
It does seem like they have a hard time with the concept. Like, maybe you guys should just time out on sex until you figure out that like it's not always going to be great, and that seeking to make it that way is impossible.
And maybe like wait until you're professionally established enough to where you're not going to, I don't know, develop an incredibly like convoluted catfishing scheme to get an internship.
So I like to use a literary frame to discuss current politics. Sometimes it's children's books, sometimes it's The Simpsons, and really just those two things. But The Simpsons, I have the extended theory that there are 3 Springfields. And there's Springfield the Good. It's when they all get together and, march out to maybe get hit by a meteorite, or it's when they unionize or whatever, and they're noble and egalitarian. There's Springfield the Mob. We know exactly what that is. They, smash snakes in the middle of the town or whatever, leave Bart in a well. But then there's like Springfield the Suckers, and it's the most fun premise for a Springfield, and it's when the entire town gets duped into something really stupid because they're a bunch of marks and rubes. And I think it kind of betrays like an ambivalence towards populism, but it also is just like the best. It's just the best episodes. It's the monorail episode where they're dumb and they get taken by Lanley.
The casino episode, another one of my favorites.
It's fantastic. I mean, like those. I think that they're some of the best episodes. Is when the entire town gets taken by a con. But my argument is actually that elites are like the biggest suckers. And the WeWork thing is probably the best example of that ever.
It's better than Fire Festival. It's better than fucking Theranos, because at least with that you could be like, well, I guess I don't really know how blood works, so like you could sort of like get why people didn't get that. But
or Fire Festival.
Yeah, it's just like, I don't know. There's a bunch of celebrities attached.
I'd want to see Ja Rule too.
Sure, who wouldn't? The Delvey thing. I mean, she's obviously like free. She's a folk hero, free Anna Delvey. All she did was steal from like, super rich people.
Who is Anna Delvey again?
Oh God, she was the fake heiress.
Oh right.
And she's like, I am raising funds to make a club that is it is for art. It's going to have art, but then also it is a dance club, but then also it is a hotel, and then
a co-working space.
And it's all of the things. It's like the most like confusing European rich people business idea in the world. And she really did believe in it too. And she ruled, and she never apologized at her trial and everything. So I don't get why like Elizabeth Holmes is walking around in Anna Delvey's and Rikers. But nonetheless, WeWork, I think, is the best one because it is the biggest, dumbest scam of our era.
So we have these figures like Elizabeth Holmes, the Fire Festival guy, Billy McFarland, and then Anna Delvey, who's sort of like a modern Patricia Highsmith character.
Yeah, she's amazing.
So added to this canon now, we have a guy named Adam Newman.
Oh, Adam Newman's amazing. When I started reading about this, I started reading the coverage in FT and then Business Insider, and I think one of the reasons like people aren't paying much attention to this and how weird it is because most of the reporting comes from FT and Business Insider, and it's all subscription stuff, and I'm the only person who actually reads FT and Business Insider. But it had this they've just been covering these slow leaks forever of just the like rapid downfall of this place, and so much of it is tied to this insane person, Adam Newman, who is, I think I described to Felix, the most Israeli man ever. So
just
he's like,
by looks alone, yeah.
Oh my God. So it's like, it's kind of like this weird, I think like Noah Colwyn had the best line where he said like Israel culturally is the fast fashion of Judaism. Like he said, it's like a whole country was H&M. And like that really covers it. So like Adam Newman is this particular type of like Israeli guy who's like an alpha hippie jock, or like half like, kibbutznik, half IDF. And he wasn't IDF. He was in the Israeli Navy, which I don't even know if that's better or I don't know what the I
think the Israeli Navy just stops people in Gaza from going fishing.
I think that's kind of it, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So he's, first thing, barefoot guy. Serious barefoot guy. Like, not they would talk about him walking around the office barefoot, just drinking $140 bottles of tequila, but also barefoot on the streets of Soho in New York. He's a fucking barefoot is legal guy in the New York streets, which I'm sorry, like, I know we talk a lot about how the police are overly punitive, but like arrest anyone who does that immediately.
That's a broken window.
Yes. Yeah. He's like an insane, eccentric guy. He was there's just so many stories and shit like that comes out from him, but he was like a psychopath who had this deranged idea of like basically ruling the world and creating an empire that he would pass down to his children, like, and the children's children, like, indefinitely. And it was based entirely off of just like real estate. There was nothing interesting about it. It had this really dubious designation as a tech company because they like tracked what the WeWorkers were doing. But like any workplace does that now. Yeah.
So that's what makes it a tech company and not just like a new kind of slumlord.
Yeah, but like anyone else also, like there's like keystroke stuff
Logging.
in any office stuff. Like it's all everyone's being tracked all the time. Yeah, we're all being tracked. I don't know who's doing it, but one of us is tracking all the rest of us.
I'm doing it. I can like stop if you guys want.
So Amber, like, how did this all, like, how did the wheels start? Like, Adam Newman has resigned now as CEO of WeWork. Like, how did this all start?
Yeah, he voted himself out, by the way.
How did this all start, like, falling apart?
So they started to notice that they had like a direct comparable competitor, and they started comparing the money, and they were like, this is fucking stupid. It got way out of hand. Also, this isn't some kind of like new technology. It's real estate. It's office spaces. And like like just bar napkin math shows that this is completely insane. Like anyone on the street would just be like, yeah, that sounds dumb. But for some reason, business people are like, I'm so smart. Only dumb people think this is dumb.
Well, Amber, like that gets to like how you sort of conclude the piece that I really like thinking again about Springfield as a kind of body politic and a sort of multifaceted representation of the best, worst, and mediocre aspects of the American public.
So Marge versus the monorail.
Yeah, like the fraudulent element of this. I think like what you get at here is that like whether it's Theranos or this or like pretty much most of like the tech economy, there is no bigger mark in American culture right now than the wealthy.
Yeah, they're just massive suckers because first of all, they're completely isolated. So like even if they're wrong, there's no risk. They're accountable to no one anymore. They have like their wealth is sometimes literally sovereign. No one will hold them accountable for it. 2, like they're just money drunk and have like these god complexes. And like the weird thing about Newman is like I think he's one of those people that like is so insane that he doesn't know he's grifting anymore. Like,
well, that's what everyone is. I mean, look at the fact he was actually consulted by fucking world leaders on Diddy's piece.
Yeah.
I think that's bedeviled everyone
he's a moron.
Meanwhile, in global politics.
It wasn't too long ago that he was like, oh, there are ethical concerns with getting money from Saudi Arabia. So he visited it was one of these things too where he wasn't supposed to have he would do these things where he would hide the staff, the support staff, to make the company look lean, and he would make like secretaries and stuff like hide and not be photographed.
Put a potted plant on their head.
He wouldn't take them places, and then there was like multiple times where apparently like he's like we're traveling lean, it's just us, we don't need help. But then he would be like go from New York to London and be like, oh shit, we need someone to make copies. So they would fly in a bunch of assistants to work for 6 hours and then fly them back, hoping that no one would see them.
UK?
I mean, like, I think there's just too high of labor laws there for him to be able to abuse them. But anyway, he goes to fucking L.A. to meet with one of these like Saudis at his like LA mansion, and one of the people who was there, who was like one of his assistants, who I guess wasn't supposed to exist but eventually leaked this stuff, was like, there's just like a tiger walking around the fucking place. And in his mind, he's like, this is really a mentorship problem. Like, no, you should never be if you're in a place where you see like James Bond bad guy shit, you're in a bad business.
Yeah, no. If there's a trapdoor anywhere, do not hang around there.
These feel like a collectively controlled economy, even if it's done by like, classic stereotypical, late era Soviet bureaucrats, could not possibly waste our money more egregiously or dumber than these people.
There's no way that the masses are dumber or bigger suckers than billionaires. You look at the way they get grifted, and it's so much worse than like, the average person could get grifted. It would be, and, I'm not talking about like, everyone doing some big horizontalist vote, to figure out like how exactly we budget everything, but something where there was some level of accountability, where people where there were repercussions to someone for making it perhaps like a dumb mistake or a bad gamble. Maybe that we could even just a little bit of a move in that direction economically, and we wouldn't see like the degree of idiotic, decadent grifting that we now see with like the WeWork thing. It is the biggest, dumbest scam in American history, and it is hilarious.
Amanda Marcotte's tweet about how like if your boyfriend doesn't like Elizabeth Warren, they secretly think that your job is stupid and don't respect you, and like they may say that they're a feminist, but when the kids come along, they'll expect you to like stop going to work and take care of the kids, which is like a very
First of all, most jobs are stupid.
Yes,
second of all, nobody reading Amanda Marcotte tweets has a boyfriend.
No, but it's like it's this weird like outmoded thing about like, yep, soon as the kid comes along, you better be full time. It's like she said like
most women I know would kill for that. I'm sorry. It's so out of date. I'm sorry.
The big problem, it really does show that like the chief problem with modern feminism at this point is because it is so associated with like going to work as liberation, that now having a job which is not inherently exploitative, it is liberatory.
Yeah. Well, work
So-
will set you free, Matt, as the old
Exactly.
saying
And
goes.
that is, I'm sorry, that is literally poisonous to class politics.
Well, it happened during there's a reason that happened, though, because it was sort of developed during a post-war period when actually jobs were kind of good. You like went into the office 30 hours a week. You've seen Mad Men. You were drunk all the time, and then you
Yeah,
got
you
home
could
really
fuck-
good.
You could fuck your secretary. It was awesome.
Yeah. So they could be forgiven for thinking that, like, oh, well, you know,
That does
there
look like
are
fun.
good jobs. That does
Yeah,
look
that
like
looks
fun.
like fun.
We're going to get to do that. But instead, the economy changed because that was like a superficial post-war bubble. And now they're like, yeah, you do have careers and you're working 70 hours a week for like garbage, or you're unemployed or underemployed or completely overemployed. You're treated like shit. You have no rights, just like the boys. Aren't you happy? Aren't
And
you
you know
fucking
what?
happy?
And that's because of the dangerous like blinders that were on the movement because of its middle class nature. Because the joke of it all is that the whole time that all these middle class women were pining for like jobs, working class women were working, and it sucked. If they had any knowledge of like what working class women actually did, they would be like, oh, working is not necessarily this great thing.
Well, they literally, I mean, okay, so they knew that those women had jobs, but they weren't talking about those jobs. I mean, like, it was acknowledged even. Like, I mean, whatever. The women in my family always worked, you know, they were garbage. But if you read like Friedan, the Feminine Mystique, when she gets to the point of prescription, she was like, well, okay, but who is going to run the house?
Yeah.
And her solution was to hire female domestic labor, those other women.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's the unspoken thing in the tweet about like, oh, like we'll expect you to take home, you know, care of the kids as soon as they come along. Well, it's just like,
Well, somebody's got to take care of the kids.
well, yeah, I mean, it just seems to assume that like you'd be hiring someone to do that, or maybe you could say that like, well, maybe the husband would stay home rather than. But then again, like, yeah, a single income household, like, yeah, that's a thing that's very easily attainable
Exactly.
to
Like
a lot of people.
yeah. Like we've created an economy where that's not even a viable option.
And never does socialized healthcare factor into any of this shit.
What are those two cities again?
Jerusalem
and
man.
Athens.
But see, this is perfect in that it totally exemplifies how it's a fairy tale. Because given the way he describes the miracle of Athens and Jerusalem, that should be uninterrupted glory and improvement until the end time. It should be an unspoken string of development. Like it's the perfect, it's the best system. Therefore, it's going to persist.
Well, why did we abandon it?
Exactly, and the answer is evil wizards. And it is. It's just totally idealistic horseshit about like this evil wizard named Marx cast a spell, and this other evil wizard named Martin Luther came down, and that those people bewitched people's minds into going back to their awful human.
And Matt,
ways.
And now we live under Toronto and Gainesville. It's tragic. It's been terrible for society.
have you ever considered making a pivot to the right and becoming a YouTuber? Because like this is what we were thinking. If we did it, I'm convinced that we could have a huge percentage of their market share in about 3 to 4 months.
Just by being able to like
just by
talk
being-
to
yeah.
people. I think it's pretty obvious where I'd go. I'd say you all sexually harassed me, and I've learned that this is what the left has to offer women. And I would rule the internet.
Oh yeah,
I would destroy with that back.
You would
Yeah,
send,
not to be
you'd
sexist,
huge.
but that is the easiest grift.
Yeah.
is-
You would
is
send
the
Laura
right-wing woman.
Loomer and Lawrence Southern and all those girls.
Instead of packing.
They would be at the fucking
done for.
They would
Done.
be at the
Yeah.
unemployment line.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Immediately.
and also like these guys are so reverent of women that it wouldn't even matter that I look like Wendy from Mario Kart.
Bloomberg is a worse person than Donald Trump.
I would
Yeah.
say
And
so.
and it's not close
No,
either.
he is a worse person.
I mean,
He's a more
like-
vicious. He's a more aggressively vicious person.
Like Donald Trump is obviously like an evil, rotten person.
Awful.
But
One of
his-
the worst
One
we
of the
have.
worst people
Yeah.
ever created.
But also
his
he's a little
evil
bit of a
rottenness
coward.
is like an elementary schooler's,
Yeah.
like a
Yes,
schoolyard bully.
because he's a
Because
coward.
I've said this before
Yes.
too. He is not bellicose. He is antagonistic.
because he's a coward.
And
Exactly.
that's the thing where
That's
I
a
said
fundamental
like
thing.
the anecdote that might be apocryphal, but someone tells about like when he was a kid and like baseballs would end up in his yard, he would yell from the window that if you go into my yard, I'll call the police on you. Whereas Bloomberg would come out with a baseball bat and beat the shit out of you. You know what? Bloomberg would leave his yard to find you to beat the shit out of you.
Or he would get his friends in blue to do it for him.
Yeah, his private army.
And watch.
Yeah,
but
so
this
much more
article
malicious.
is insane.
Oh yeah. So what is this article?
Like, so it's a collection of complaints, but then there's also like they leaked this, I guess, like a ribald present that one of Bloomberg's they made a quote book of him and like distributed around his
the wit and wisdom of Michael Bloomberg.
It's really weird.
Neither
it's really
witty
weird.
nor wise.
Like the actual first of all, the corporate culture that does stuff like this that's so
Sickos.
self-referential. It's like they're all at like summer camp together or something.
Let's literally make a zine of our boss's sexual harassment.
Yeah. So, but like, if you look at some of these, but the way this guy wrote it, it's almost. This is a thing that I'm almost conspiratorial about, where it's just like, did they do this to like downplay how awful he is?
Yeah, like we have to write an article about the sex stuff. Let's run it through Google Translate 14 times.
That's what I said. I said it sounds like it was originally written in Japanese and they ran it through Babelfish.
Yeah.
But like here's like complaint number 44. Upon information and belief in or about July 1993, Bloomberg heard that a female company salesperson had just had a baby, was having difficulty finding a nanny. He yelled loudly at her in the presence of a large group of employees. I think it's a fucking baby.
Yeah, it's a fucking baby.
Yeah, and by the way, I don't know. Are you a child? Print the curse.
Let's
print the
curse,
swear.
please. Print the swears.
Are you a fucking
the man
child?
Who wants to be president said.
Thank you.
Yes. All it does is eat and shit. It doesn't know the difference between you and anyone else. All you need is some black who doesn't even have to speak English to rescue it from a burning building. The salesperson cried at hearing her employer say such things to her in such a public manner.
Such things.
So, like, this guy that wrote this, it's just, he has this really flat affect and, like, this weird puritanical kind of, I don't understand it. The other thing is, like, he just keeps saying, like, about the crude things that he'll say about, like, women. It says, Bloomberg also allegedly said about Garrison that he would have sex with her, quote, in a minute, but that he regretted that she didn't have legs and an A -- like a certain actress. He won't say who the actress is.
What the fuck?
Yes.
That's not a libel thing. They were just referenced.
You could
by a third
that's
party.
not libelous.
I'm sorry. I need to
Also,
know.
I want to know.
I need to know
What
who
if it's like Anne Ramsey or Kathy Bates?
Throw Mama from the train. Oh my God.
Lucille Ball.
Va va
Now, there
voom,
was
Miss
a lady.
Mama Fratelli from the Goonies.
It's just insane. I don't even know. He keeps saying, okay, the post obtained a copy of the booklet. Bloomberg is quoted as desiring oral sex from a well-known actress.
God damn it.
First of all, desiring oral sex is like, again, that's like a Google Translate thing. I desire oral sex from you. That's someone trying to get laid reading from a phrase book.
Yeah, also
Like the Hungarian phrase
you
book
could
in my
desire oral sex with someone without anyone knowing.
Yes.
It's all in your head.
I'm trying to figure out how you would even say something out loud that would be translated into that legalese that was like he
desiring.
was making a statement desiring.
Yeah.
Desiring of, and then like, I just say the actress. I don't know why you were saying the actress.
I need to know who it is.
One of the things, if women wanted to be appreciated for their brains, they go to the library instead of Bloomingdale's, which is just like, why not just say Gimbals? How old are you? How fucking old are you?
Here's the other thing, though. He also made news because in his meeting with, what's his name? Leo Darth Vader? I'm not going to...
Calm down.
They just did like a stern female voice telling them to calm down once every 20 minutes. It's the entire premise of the country. Without that, it would fall apart.
Is the handsy Biden narrative productive, or should we be focusing on his god-awful policy record?
No, it won't work.
You say, so it's not productive to...
It's not productive.
with
The vast majority of people in America don't find what Joe Biden does to be horrifying enough, and it's a losing game. And also, like, why would you focus on that stuff? He's awful.
Is it, is it funny though? Like
Biden's son.
It's worth talking about.
Biden's son is one of the all-time greatest political memes of all time. But we should be talking about his war record, the crime bill, bankruptcy, things like that.
That is, in
but
terms of
I
a
want
productive-
every single Biden, creeping on anime girls, like photo possible.
But what about-
those are wonderful.
Yeah, those are hilarious. But what about just all the photos of like the unedited versions? Like,
Oh,
is it productive in the sense that I think I agree with you in that I don't think like as far as the like Twitter narrative goes that like, oh, he's done. Like I think it's a mistake to assume that
No,
this is on
you're
its
not
face
gonna
will
cancel
just
Joe
like
Biden.
end his political
No.
hopes or presidency. However, is it like I said, I think it's he's weird. He's a weird, like it's weird to keep doing that to people. And
I think he's just old.
there's something like
Every woman I know personally is like, yeah, he's old. And every man I know is like, whoa, because I think this is the first time they ever encountered the fact that there's an entire generation of men that just do that.
there's something a little off with Biden. But no, like so your answer is that it is
Dead end.
it's a dead end politically to make Joe Biden's handsiness and photo ops a political issue.
Yeah.
At least as contrasted with his generally wretched voting record on everything.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and people just like don't care. Like no one is as invested in this stuff as kind of like the online discourse. I mean, like what did we do when we found out Bernie wrote a weird thing on women's sexuality where he was like, women want to be gangbanged. We're like, yeah, who cares? Who cares? Is that weird? Yes, that's a weird old man thing to do, and I don't care.
But I think one of the reasons people want to talk about it is just because they get a chance to do what everyone's favorite thing to do, which is point out hypocrisy. Because
That's
you
true.
immediately have a bunch of Democrats
Yeah.
who spent 2016 talking about sexism and Bernie's misogynist finger wagging and are now saying that, Uncle Gropey's, that's fine.
Well,
and you
I'm
get to point out,
consistent
haha,
in
you
that
got it.
I'm
You're a
politically
hypocrite.
consistent in that I would let Bernie grab my boob. Is that how it works? I think that's how the math works, right?
But people are going to have a very hard time very hard time resisting the pull of gotching people and pointing
Yeah.
out hypocrisy.
We've talked about this before, but like that's the big thing that Democrats have been trying to rely on for the past, like during Obama, like Taibbi talked about it. Like he's like, here's the thing, I'm gonna own them by voting for a Republican piece of legislation, and when they shoot it down, we'll show that they're hypocrites. It's like they still haven't figured out that like the pointing out that they're hypocrites. They still haven't figured out that politics isn't a debate, like isn't a high school debate.
I think the assumption is even if they might even stipulate, hypocrisy in general doesn't work. But if there's anybody in America who does care about accusations of hypocrisy, it's Democrats. And if they're the ones who are actually going to be deciding a nominee, then maybe it would work against them. I don't know. I think that's the
I
logic,
don't think
though.
so. I think the vast majority. The other thing is that like Joe Biden has like a legitimate base. I think the thinking is that they can like fake out the kind of like elite PMC like Democrats, but Joe Biden, this is still something largely decided on by votes, and I think they like are sick of running losers, and they know that people do like Joe Biden. I mean, they really like Joe Biden. Joe Biden has a
Well, he's associated with like
He has
Obama.
the halo of
Yeah, he's the
Obama.
halo of the Obama
he's
years.
not a cuck,
which
like
people
we
wanna
haven't
go back
had.
to.
Yes, we haven't had like a strongman Democrat for a while. He threatened to punch Trump. Like that's cool.
Well, I mean, some guy did just say like he will have a physical presence that will stand up to Trump. I'm not so convinced about that because I think
No, but he does have like drunk uncle energy, which right now I think people are really
people are
thirsting
responding
for.
to. So, in answer to the question, a resounding no to the idea that Biden smelling women's hair and giving them neck massages is going to be
Won't work.
a productive line of political attack on Joe Biden in the primary or even a general election.
No, stick with bankruptcy, crime bill,
Iraq
war. Historically speaking, most socialists have kind of been
passive social.
Yeah. I
Card
get
carrying
paper
only.
members. Paper
Yeah.
members is usually what we say. You're always going to need more active people, and usually once every couple of years you'll be asked to do something small. But it's like we're not going to have a million. People are busy.
Yeah, I don't think people should be too neurotic
Yeah.
about how real of or not of a socialist they are, or what.
Yeah.
I think it's like, like a basic set of political values and
yeah, I mean, there's no such thing as like an isolated socialist. So like you probably should, if at all possible, like affiliate and at least pay dues or something. But like the idea that you're gonna I think it was Oscar Wilde said the problem with socialism, it takes up too many weekends. Like the idea is that everyone is going to be like an activist is like that's ridiculous. Like the whole idea of forming something like a labor party or any of these institutions of the working class is supposed to be that you're not constantly having to work, is that we create democratic workers machinery so that things can kind of operate without constant horizontalist participation. Like we're trying to get to the point where we can spend less time on socialism and not go to meetings. Beware of any socialist that loves meetings. I just finished Moby Dick, which is amazing.
Really?
Yeah.
It's a good book.
It's such a good book.
It's a great book.
Oh my God. It's also one of those things that I thought it wasn't actually a good book. And I thought it was just like, about men on the sea and
it's about
madness or whatever.
Everything.
It is about everything. It's about America. And I thought it was going to be, gay. But it's like gay.
Yes.
So I was delighted by it's just like homoerotic and toothsome, and the whole thing is really good.
It's a book that really contains everything, and as you said, it really is about America. Like the Pequod, the ship, is a kind of condensed like version of America in the world. The thing is, like the pitfall that people get with Moby Dick is like the first 100 pages or so is what everyone thinks about,
right?
And it's like Call Me Ishmael, and there's amazing opening chapters where he meets Queequeg, and they sleep in this hotel room together.
Oh my God! If someone had told me, oh my God, he clutched me in his bridegroom clasp. Like if someone had told me how homoerotic this book was, I would have read it so much longer ago.
And and they sign up with the ship, and then they go whaling. Like they don't. First of all, you don't even meet Ahab until about like 150 pages into the book. You don't even like meet a whale, let alone Moby Dick, until a long way into
happens.
it.
There's like a weird mutiny. It's great. It's great.
It's a really hard book I would highly recommend it. It is a really hard book to read because basically the entire middle 2/3 of the book, until about the last 50 pages, is just like descriptions of like different kinds of knots.
Okay, well, everyone stops at the same part. They stop at the part where he tries to make a little mini survey of cetology.
Chapter,
and he tries to go through all the whales. And the great thing about everyone hates that part. I actually loved it because the great thing about it is that there are two types of whale facts. One, which is just completely inaccurate, where he's like, a whale's a fish. And then two, where he's like, there's this one whale, we don't know anything about it. So moving on. Those are like the two kinds of whale facts in this etology. It's like, I only know two things about whales. One, whales are definitely fish. And two, no one knows anything about whales anyway. Like, that's the entire thing. I found it really charming. I loved all the prose. The main thing is just like, I think, don't assume you're going to read it in a weekend. And just because they're really short chapters and you can break it up. It's completely fine. Like, just read the extremely short chapters. Read like 2 or 3 a day and kind of like let them marinate in your brain.
It's not that he's afraid of dying or being disfigured. Everybody is, as you said. The thing is that for some people, there's a force greater than their fear that can compel them. It's often coercion. In our army, it's largely economic coercion, but it can also be a principle, a good one or a bad one. But he doesn't have any of that. He can't be coerced, and he sure shit would never sacrifice himself for any concept or other person. So for him, it is nonsensical.
I think it's also interesting that he uses the word heroism here, which is a very specific kind of romantic individualist word. And he doesn't use the word like duty or responsibility or, should you be called to violent action, and you're not a pacifist, but you don't want to go to war, but you say like, this is the just situation which I would intervene. I would hope that you would go into it thinking, I have a responsibility, I have a duty to mankind, to blah, 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 blah. I would hope that you wouldn't think, I'm going to be a fucking hero. Because that's like just how you end up with like the My Lai massacre.
Yes, it's exactly how.
Did you guys ever watch the somewhat maligned Terry Gilliam movie, The Adventures of Baron Munchausen?
Of course.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So when they have Vulcan, they imagine him as basically an arms dealer. And, he's the god of fire. And his final sort of monologue that he gives is that, like, well, we're going to make a thing where you just press a button and it goes all the way to the other side of the world and it kills a bunch of people. And, the little girl protagonist is like, that's horrible. He's like, yes, but then you don't have to see a single person die. And I think, like, it's a pretty, like, heavy-handed but really, like, prescient idea of, like, the sense of, like, technology becoming a business of mass murder that you don't have to pay attention to, that you can ignore, that is tidy, that doesn't weigh on your conscience. And I think about it all the time because it's like the movie's like from the 80s or something, and it's like, God, it's become so efficient. It's become so fucking efficient that at this point you think of like dead soldiers. It almost seems insane. Half the time they're just playing video games.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Amber, that people have been arguing that from the 1930s. Like, this is the dream of liberal warfare. Like, the national security state is a liberal institution. And I have a piece coming out on this in Jacobin. But one of the things that they wanted to do was exactly that, was to make war progressive. And they literally used that language by making it more efficient and humane. I mean, the sickest example of that was that after they dropped the atomic bomb, Loris Norstad is like, this is a precision weapon. We killed a city in one bomb. That's amazing. Like, we made war more efficient and even more humane. And I think the apotheosis of that is like the drone strike, right? The video game drone strike, where you don't even have to like confront your enemy. You could just kill them with a button push. And therefore, that's the progressive, humane, efficient, economical way of fighting war. And that's totally the American way of war. It's supposed to be.
Well, and I think too, like there's been I didn't know it went back that far, but there's been a fear of like the sort of like technologically advanced war and about how that's almost a distraction. It's almost a technocratic approach to it. Remember when everyone was like terrified of like stealth missiles, and they thought that was going to dehumanize the whole conflict, and there was this whole moral conundrum, and the issue was that like the technology was too efficient. We were too distant from it. And it's almost like, for a few years ago, when people first started getting obsessed with drones and drone strikes, it's almost like the actual technology became a distraction from like, well, we need to not have the war, regardless of what Lego set we're using to do it. But the technology is almost so like baffling and horrifying and dehumanizing, and we have no context for it. The way we don't have a million movies of the way we have people sitting in foxholes or running through jungles. So it's like, I don't know. It's just like this weird thing where it's hard at this point for us to even wrap our heads around what would be an anti-war movement, what would be an anti-imperialism movement, because the technology itself is so horrifying that it distracts from the actual politics that undergird it.
So I actually, in my insane boredom, decided to subscribe to the Masterclass series, which bills itself as an online education outlet, but it's more of kind of like a venture capitalist celebrity seminar thing. It is deranged bullshit, which I knew going in, but I wanted to see like what this economy was. And also it has some really good people on it. Like there's weird shit in it too. Like there's like Misty Copeland, and she's like the principal dancer for like the American Ballet, and like it's a technique class, and I'm like, there's no way this is a technique class, because you can't, like, ballet technique is like an advanced thing, and the entire premise of ballet is that you do these fundamentals and you build on them, and like professional dancers take like ballet 1 over and over again to perfect like the move. Like it doesn't make any sense. So I'm like looking at it, and like there are a few things that are like sort of ballet specific, like where she talks about building up so much muscle that she lost her flexibility. But the majority of it is just like what you'd expect is like, sometimes people are going to tell you you don't have the right body or the right look, but, they're just strong and you have to keep doing it. And like, I don't give a shit, girl, cash that check. You can't be a dancer forever. But it is like really insane that everyone kind of knows that this service isn't providing like hard skills or real classes. It's like motivational talks, most of it.
Yeah.
Every once in a while, someone will apparently give you like something good. Like apparently the Lynch one has like him saying like, so you get note cards, which is good technical advice. And actually Sorkin gave at least one piece of good technical advice, which is like start by adapting a short story. Masterclass, where they pay a lot of very impressive people to say a bunch of bullshit, some of which might be good advice here and there, but like that's not how you learn to write. You learn to write by writing and reading and discussing writing with other people who write. You can't stream being a writer. It doesn't work. And they chose to have Aaron Sorkin be their screenwriting quote unquote teacher. Now they did this, or this one went live June 19th, 2016. So I'm guessing they wanted to sort of like, capitalize off the Obama nostalgia and off of the kind of West Wing nostalgia. Plus, I bet it's very easy to shoot with Sorkin because he finishes everything in one day, if that. So I am not like a Sorkinist. I've had to watch The Newsroom and episodes of The West Wing for this show, but I'm certainly not a completist. And I haven't watched that much of it. But you figure out the Sorkin world almost immediately, just jumping in. Like first it's confusing because there's like a lot of characters and you're like, what's going on? But like very quickly, all of the tropes become immediately obvious to you. And everything that you guys have been joking about like perpetually suddenly makes sense. Also, we have a friend who insists it is a good show, which I dispute, but based only on what I have seen. So I think the first thing is that the intro that he does, which is like a 2-minute like bumper thing, where he goes, damn it. And he's like, says some sentence. He's like, okay, first rule of screenwriting. No one ever starts a sentence with damn it. Which is one, untrue, and two, literally who cares? Because like, I love stylized dialogue. My problem with like Sorkin's dialogue isn't that it's stylized. I love like the Charles Portis inflected dialogue of a Coen Brothers movie, and no one talks like that either. But the disturbing thing that I realized in watching this is that Aaron Sorkin thinks that people talk like Aaron Sorkin characters. He walks around every day, and when he orders his coffee or picks up his dry cleaning, what he hears in his head is Aaron Sorkin dialogue. And that must be a terrifying way to live. Like being stuck, those people who did too much acid and they're just stuck in it forever?
Yes.
That's him. That's his life.
Yeah, whenever he cracks his back, like there's a little like in his spine, it releases just like a fucking typhoon of walk and talk dialogue, and he thinks he's there. He thinks he's in the White House. When I was watching it, and it shows like they pay for the rights to this to like use old Aaron Sorkin bullshit. And it's like when I was watching it, I was like, what is, because having now watched a ton of modern network TV, I'm like, well, I can't argue that a lot of these Sorkin shows are way better than these. They're way better than fucking This Is Us or Council of Dads or a million little things. But it's like, because they're a trick. They have a trick. Like Sorkin dialogue has like a rhythm. It's like a play. It's not. I thought he knew that these aren't realistic how people talk. He doesn't know that. Like when I was watching it, I was like, well, I don't like what Sorkin does, but it's like clever and it digests easily because it has this false rhythm that people's actual fucking speech does not have. But this psychopath thinks that like when Obama would have conversations, it was like this.
Yeah, which must be a terrifying way to live. Honest to God, again, I'm only halfway through this thing, but I'm coming out of it with a great deal of pity for Aaron Sorkin, who apparently lives in a hell world where everyone is walking and talking all the time. That poor guy. And okay, so like full disclosure, I am not a medical doctor, obviously, just as a disclaimer, nor am I a counselor of any kind. But Aaron Sorkin in person is, shall we say, a bit high energy.
Yes.
a bit frenetic.
Yeah, he says in the first episode, like the prelude, he's like, "I apologize in advance.
Yes.
I prefer communicating by, by
Paper.
text."
He's like, I'd rather put it on the paper.
And I relate to that. I would rather. I mean, me personally, I'd rather be posting. Like I don't consider myself an amazing speaker. My medium is posting.
Right.
Mr. Sorkin.
And this is the weird thing too, because like, for like the podcast, like I'm a writer and you're a poster and Matt and Will are great extemporaneous speakers, but we just sort of like ramble until we say something funny. But it is a separate thing. And I kind of had this weird crisis when I heard him say that, because he's like, just so you know, I never go in a straight line. And he does, he has a very rhizomatic thought process where he zips around. And I was just like, oh shit, that's me. Oh shit. And because that is totally me. That is you too. And then I was like, and he's like, I'm better on paper. And I'm like, oh shit, what if this means that I'm not actually a good writer either? I'm just a better writer than I am a speaker, and I'm a dog shit speaker. So it's just a comparison thing. So I had like a little bit of an artistic crisis listening to him.
In your ideal society, abortion would be 100% illegal across the board in any case.
Yep.
Okay, what would happen to the woman who procures an abortion in your ideal society?
I would probably not be inclined to think that the woman should be punished. I
Why?
think that because she's probably been hoodwinked and taken advantage of.
Do you know any woman who's... Do you know a single woman who's had an abortion?
No.
Oh.
Okay.
Hi.
Well, we got a surprise for you, buddy. But you were saying
what she has in fact done is been an accessory.
Hi, I'm Amber. Would I go to jail? Here's what I'm asking.
Would a woman go to jail
Spit it out.
who's been an accessory to murder? In this case, infanticide.
Because an accessory to murder is
yes.
Okay, so
Okay,
I would
she
go to
would go to
jail.
jail.
You would send me to jail. Okay, that's really what I wanted to know.
Sure.
Okay.
Okay.
But and the person
Well, at least you're a man for like a minute and will like admit it.
and the person who carries out this sacrifice.
Oh, I'm not turning them in.
And the person who performs the sacrifice to Moloch will be executed.
Okay, I'm not turning them in though. Here's the thing. I'm not turning them in. What will you do? I will literally be the only person that goes to jail for it. I will not sell out the person who I got that service from.
Okay, Amber. You've had your this is your moment of defining moral clarity. This is your apotheosis. Congratulations, I don't give a shit. I mean, cry me a river. I don't care. I will pray for you tonight.
Oh, well, enjoy.
I mean, I don't understand what point you're trying to make or what you're trying to wring out of me here.
I think that the point is that we're trying to figure out how punitive your society is supposed to be. I mean, that's really what we're laying out here.
Because that's what you want to needle me on rather than discuss the question.
Yeah, we
of
do.
whether,
We're going to throw people in jail. Yeah, that is a problem for us.
Of whether or not murdering babies is okay. That's what you'd rather discuss.
because there's nothing to discuss on that. We
Because,
don't think
like,
it's murdering babies, and they're
I can't
yeah, but
be
we don't think that's
forced
true.
to give up an organ to someone who needs a fucking kidney.
A baby is an organ. A baby is an organ.
No, it forms no function. It's not as good as an organ.
It's not as good. See, you've already condemned your own position. That is.
I've proven your point by your own logic.
That is as idiotic as it is satanic.
Hail Satan!
Chapo.